وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. How is everyone? Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, before we begin, I'm going to first welcome everyone, say Jazakallah khairan for everyone's coming. Secondly, I'm going to be a bit slower in the beginning, and especially alhamdulillah, we have a mic because I can't talk very loud at the moment. I'm a person who suffers from chronic migraine syndrome, and I don't know if anyone in the room is familiar with migraines, but they are quite debilitating at times. I take some very heavy medication for them. Having a very bad migraine this morning, I've taken medication that hasn't really done its job to the best ability, and my next recourse is a shot that I have to take, which if I take that shot, it will absolutely wipe me out. It's causing me to be very dizzy and very nauseous, so I'm going to be a bit gentle as we begin, inshallah. And worst case scenario, if I have to cut the first half a bit short, I will, so that I can go and take my second medication, so that I'll be propped up enough for the Islam in the Bible section. So if this one is cut a bit short, please forgive me. I do want to be able to finish it, but when the migraine gets very bad, I'm even starting to lose vision on my left side. So, brothers, I can't see you as well. So just so you understand why I might not be my normal self, all energetic and things of that nature. Please forgive me. And I'm also losing my voice because of things that I want to tell you about, some side effects of nausea that the migraines cause. This first portion, we were discussing reflections in da'wah, or things that I have experienced in the field of doing da'wah for almost a decade now. Some things that I wanted to share with you guys that I think would be particularly important if you plan to get involved in da'wah, you plan to get involved in sharing the message of Islam. This is extremely important for you to grasp and understand. Without these basic premises, your da'wah will be flawed. Your da'wah will be flawed. Your call to Islam will be flawed. And I want to give you just a few pointers, inshallah, in this first segment that will, even if you don't learn a whole lot about da'wah, at least knowing these principles will help you, help guide you on all the da'wah that you do. That if you can try to stick to at least these principles, then inshallah everything else will fall into place better, inshallah. The first question that I'd like to ask is, what is da'wah? Someone tell me, because this is what we're talking about today, reflections in da'wah. What is da'wah? Yes, sister. To invite someone for something in general. So the sister said in general it's inviting someone to something linguistically, and specifically it's inviting people to Islam. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Anything? Okay, yes. To tell them about the religion, let them know about Islam and the Muslims. Okay, anything else? Okay. Linguistically, the sister hit it on the head. Da'wah is an invitation, inviting. It's inviting people to something. Da'wah can be to anything. Linguistically, I was given da'wah to come here linguistically. I was invited to come. Linguistically, shaitan does the most da'wah. He invites the most people to his way, to his path, and he's the best at it. He's really good at it. He's been doing it for a long time. He's been doing it since the beginning of humanity. So he's very good at what he does. But specifically Islamically, da'wah is an invitation to not just Islam, but an invitation to Tawheed. Da'wah is an invitation to Tawheed and Allah, asking people to believe in Allah alone, and to Islam in all of its principles, in its totality. So this is our da'wah. This is what we're asking people to do. We're asking people to accept that there is only one God, there is only one Creator, there is only one Lord that's worthy of worship, and then we're asking them to accept Islam and all of its principles. Now, the way that I go about explaining this is, first we have to get to point A, which is Tawheed. If you believe that there is one Creator, if you believe there is one God, and He created human beings, it is only logical that this Creator gave human beings the system by with which to worship Him and live their lives. It would make no sense for me to give you a computer. Let's say I gave you a brand new 2015, the best computer that exists, and I did not give you an operating system with it. What good is that computer? It's not worth anything. It's just a nice looking box of plastic and metal. It can't work. It can't function. It can't do what it was intended to do because there's no operating system. The same way the Creator created human beings and He gave them an operating system. And that operating system has always been Islam. It's always been Islam. And it's always been the same operating system, but just like operating systems with the computers, there's been tweaks along the way. There's been tweaks along the way with advancement in human understanding and human civilization and things of that nature. Some laws have been changed and modified and things have been added and taken away, but the overall premise of the system has been the same, to worship the Creator and to do what He asked you to do. That's the simple understanding of Islam, is to worship the Creator and do what He asks you to do. When I try to explain to people what Islam is, this is always something that is, I find that a lot of people have a trouble getting out. What is Islam? What is it? Even when people ask you, what is Islam? What are you going to say? Someone comes to you and says, what is Islam? What are you going to say? Submit to the will of Allah. That's it? That's all Islam is? What is Islam then?
I think I would say something like, it is the religion that has been brought down from the very beginning of humanity. And I would sound like that being Sayyidina Adam.
Okay. I want one sentence. What is Islam? Just give me a sentence that you could tell to any human being to make them understand what Islam really is. Yes, young man? Religion of peace. That's it. Islam is just peace. We don't act very peaceful. We don't seem very peaceful. That one's a hard one to sell, trust me. Yes. Total submission and obedience to the teachings of Allah and the Creator. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, let's break it down. And this is the way I break it down to non-Muslims when I have the opportunity to explain to them what Islam is. First and foremost, Islam is an English word. Is this an English word? It's not an English word. So it's not going to be definable in one word, for sure. It's an Arabic word, and it's a classical Arabic word. Therefore, it has great depth, great meaning. So let's break it down to its most basic level. Every Arabic word has a root system behind it. Normally 3 or 4 letters that give you a connotation of what is meant or understood and the derivatives of it. The root of Islam is what? Sin, Lam, Mim, Salama. S-L-M, you add an A to all of them, Salama. What does Salama mean? It can have many meanings. It can mean submission. It can mean submission. It can mean peace. It can mean surrender. To be protected from something, to be obedient, to be sincere. All of these different connotations can come from this word salama. So what does Islam mean as an understood application? This is a definition that I worked on with one of the scholars of Medina. His name is Sheikh Abdullah Amin Ash-Shanqiti, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, the son of the great scholar Ash-Shanqiti. This is what we came down and boiled it down to, that Islam is a way of life that is submitting with sincerity to the Creator in obedience to Him to have peace in this life and peace in the next. This is Islam. This is the understood application of the word Islam. Sincere submission to the Creator in obedience to Him in order to obtain peace in this life and in the next. Because if you were to say that Islam only means peace, then you've missed a lot, because peace is not does not happen through osmosis. It just doesn't appear. Peace doesn't just happen because you want it to be peaceful. Peace is an end result of something, yes or no? Peace is worked at, peace is struggled for, peace is strived for, peace is fought for. Peace is an end result of something. So for the Muslim, the peace comes as an end result of the sincere, submissive obedience to the Creator. Then the peace comes into your life. And you have peace in this life and peace in the next life. So, because if you try to tell someone that Islam is peace, and they say, why aren't Muslims peaceful? Why are your countries the most unpeaceful places? Well, because we don't have the Islam. It's the problem. The Islam's not there, so the peace goes with it. These two things go hand in hand. If you don't have Islam, the peace won't be there. If the Islam leaves, the peace goes with it. These two walk hand in hand. So the sincere submission to the Creator with obedience is what brings the peace. So this is what Islam is all about. And if you understand what Islam is, guess what else you understand? You understand what Islam is not. You see, this saves us the time of wasting so much effort on telling people what Islam is not. Because if I wanted to explain to you what Islam is not, well, that list is endless. That list would be continuing forever and ever and ever and ever. But when I tell you what Islam is, it is sincere submission to the Creator and obedience to Him to have peace in this life and the next. Then everything that does not fall in line with this definition is not Islam. It can't go. It can't go. It can't go hand in hand. Like the word Islamic terrorism. These two things don't mix. How can you have sincere submission to the Creator and obedience to Him to have peace in this life and the next by terrorizing anything? These two things won't work. You've thrown the peace and everything that makes the peace out the window. The same with Islamic extremism. There's no such thing. There's no extreme version of sincerely submitting to the Creator and obedience to Him. There's no extreme form of that. So you see, you understand what Islam is not by understanding what it is. This is an applied understanding in da'wah. You understand what something is. You understand what something is not by understanding what it is. By understanding what it is. Because if you go down the road of trying to defend Islam always from its what it is not, then that will be your entire da'wah, defense. And you'll never truly get the message across. And this is the whole purpose a lot of times, is to keep you on the defense so that you can never have an offense. This is a old school boxing technique. The rope-a-dope, you know what I mean? There's the old school boxing technique to keep your opponent on the defense, keep yourself on the defense. This is very detrimental to da'wah. It's always be defensive. Defensive da'wah is necessary when it's necessary. Such as the character of the Prophet being assassinated. Defensive da'wah is necessary. The religion of Allah is being mocked and ridiculed. Defensive da'wah is necessary. But how do you defend it? By sharing the truth of the matter. Sharing the truth of the matter. Not by saying, no, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that. Because then no one ever knows what it really is. That's the politician way. They tell you a lot of no, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not, what are you? They never get to that. They never really get to what they really are. You have to find out the hard way. When they're elected and they start doing all this nonsense, then we figure out who they really are. But during the entire campaign, they're just defending themselves against what they are not. This is diversion. So we don't want to be with this kind of diverted da'wah. We want to explain to people what Islam is. Sincere submission to my Creator in obedience to Him to have peace in this life and in the next. So if my Creator tells me to worship Him 5 times a day in a certain prescribed manner, I obey that. If my Creator tells me to do such and such A, B, and C, I do that. If my Creator tells me don't do A, B, and C, I do that. This is the obedience that brings the peace into my life, because I'm doing what my Creator wants. I'm following the operating system. I'm following the operating system. Along that line, if that's what Islam is, then who are Muslims? Who are Muslims along that same line of thinking? People who are following Islam. Again, you break this down. We're very close. The sister was right on it. The word Muslim is an Arabic word, and it comes from what root? The same root word, salama, but it's taken a different grammatical state. It's taken a different grammatical state. For instance, in the English language, and when you explain this to non-Muslims, they really get it. It clicks. In the English language, if I wanted to connote that I was a doer of a certain action, for instance, I'm talking right now. If I wanted to say that I'm the one doing the talking, how would I do that in the English language? Suffix er, talk-er. Now I have connoted to you that I am the person doing the talking. I'm the talker. If I'm walking, I'm the walker. I'm the doer of the action. It attributes me to the action, correct? In the Arabic language, there is a very similar ruling, except it comes at the beginning of the word most of the time. There are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, generally, in a general understanding, it comes at the beginning of the word and it's one letter. What is that letter? Mim, M. You put an M at the beginning of a word and it connotes the doer of that action in most cases. For instance, the call to prayer is called the adhan. The adhan. Now, if I wanted to say that I'm the one doing the adhan, I am the mu'adhan. The mu'adhan. The mu'adhan. The one who does the adhan. Traveling, safar. If I wanted to say I'm doing the traveling, I am the musafir. The one who is doing the traveling. So now if I wanted to say I'm the one doing the Islam, I'm the one doing the Islam, then I do the same thing. I put a meme on the beginning of it and it becomes Muslim. Not Mu-Islam, but Muslim. Muslim only means one who does Islam. One who does Islam. So if I call myself a Muslim, I am saying to you that I'm a person, I am the one who submits himself sincerely to his Creator in obedience to Him to have peace in this life and the next. That's what my life is about. That's what my life is about. Therefore, that's who I am. And everything other than that is what a Muslim is not. So again, a Muslim can't be a Muslim terrorist, a Muslim extremist, a Muslim radical, a Muslim killer, a Muslim murderer, things of this nature that don't fit into these two things don't go together. You can't put them in the same sentence because they don't mix. So this is a simple way to explain to people what is Islam and who are Muslims. All of it revolving around the Creator, Tawheed, what we're trying to call people to. That I submit myself sincerely to my Creator alone to have peace in this life and in the next. And I'm doing that so I am a Muslim. That's what makes you a Muslim. It also gives us an understanding that the word Muslim is more than just a call tag. It's more than just a name. It means you are doing something. It is a call to some form of action. If you say that you are a Muslim, then you are saying you're doing something. It's not just lip service. You can call yourself I can call myself a chicken. All I want will never make me a chicken. Can never be one. Just because I say I'm one. Even if I really believe it. Same with being a Muslim. You can say you're a Muslim all you want. You can believe that you're one all you want. But what makes you Muslim is following that belief up by doing what it says. By doing the Islam. By doing the Islam. That gives you that connotation. Now, da'wah being a call to Tawheed and to Islam and all of its principles, everything in Islam has a place. And that's what I love about Islam. Is that I'm a person who likes things particular. I just like to say that I'm very organized or what have you, or clean and tidy. My wife says it's an OCD. They have an OCD about certain things. They have to be set a certain way and organized and nice and neat. It's just habit. I do it without thinking. Islam is very similar to this. Everything has a place. Everything has a place. And it's extremely organized. If everything in Islam has a place, and that place will show you the importance of the matter. The place wherein you find the particular thing will show you the importance of a matter, such as Salah. Salah holds one of the highest places in the religion of Islam. One of the highest pinnacles in the religion of Islam is your connection and your established worship to your Creator. Yes or no? So this is the first thing you'll be questioned about on the Day of Judgment. This is if this is in place, everything else will be in place. If this is out of place, everything else will be out of place. Therefore, it shows you that it has significant importance. Significant importance. There are other things which have much less significance and importance in Islam, such as some of the things which can be done, and if you do them, it's good, and if you don't, you're not rewarded or you're punished either way. Such as, let me think of one, such as sadaqah. Sadaqah. It's a very beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing in Islam. But if you don't do it because you don't have the ability to do it or whatsoever, then you're not punished because it's not mandated. Zakah is something you'd be punished for. Sadaqah is something that's encouraged, but if you don't have the ability, you don't have the means, or there's not the person around to give it to, etc., you don't have to. Everything has its place in Islam. Things are either mandatory, means you have to do them. You don't have no choice. You're rewarded if you do them, but you're punished if you don't. Or things are recommended. They're recommended means that you should do them. You're rewarded for doing them, but you're not punished if you don't do them. But it's good if you do them. There are things that are neither. They're neither mandatory nor are they forbidden. Just you can do them if you want to, but you don't have to. There's no say so on the matter whatsoever. Such as playing basketball. There's no religious ruling on it. If you want to do it, you can do it. You don't have to. Doesn't matter. Then there are things that are frowned upon. There are things that are makruh, which means that you shouldn't do it, and it's an easy road towards the impermissible matters. But if you do it, it's not the worst of things. It's not necessarily going to bring about punishment, but it's something you should probably stay away from. It's a gray area. And then there are things that are forbidden. You're not allowed to do them. If you do them, you'll be punished. And if you stay away from them, you'll be rewarded. Da'wah has to fall along the spectrum somewhere in Islam, right? It has to. Da'wah has to fall somewhere. It's either mandatory, it's recommended, no opinion on it, it's frowned upon, or it's forbidden. Where does it fall? Anyone who thinks that it's forbidden, raise your hand. You're not allowed to do it. If it's frowned upon, raise your hand. If it's neither here nor there, doesn't matter either way. No? Nobody? It's recommended. It's recommended, but if you don't do it, you won't be punished. Raise your hand if you think that. It's recommended. If you do it, you'll be rewarded. If you don't do it, you won't be punished. Got a couple? I'm saying general. How many of you believe it's mandatory? That means if you have to do it within your capacity, just like every other mandatory act, but if you don't do it, you'll be punished. How many? Raise your hand again. Hands down. How many of you don't know? And that's the reason you're here. You want to know. Trust me, you don't know is the right answer if you don't know. That's a correct answer. It's a praiseworthy answer. All right. Da'wah also has a tricky ruling because it falls into different places under different circumstances. But we're going to talk about the general first and foremost. The general overall ruling of da'wah is that it is mandatory. It's fard. Mandatory. It's wajib. You have to do it. You have to. How do we know? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nahl, verse 125, "Ud'u illa sabir rabbika bil hikmati wa ma'izati al-hasana." Call into the way of your Lord with wisdom and with good speech. There is one word in this verse that tells us that da'wah is mandatory. What word is that? Ud'u. Why? The word ud'u is from the root word da'a, which da'wah comes from. There's this root. Du'a comes from this root. But ud'u has taken the grammatical state of amr, of commands. Commands. Direct command from Allah, ud'u. Just like when Allah says, aqim as-salah. This is direct command. U'tu zakah. Pay zakah. Direct command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this command is general because there is no quantification in the verse. It doesn't say, Ya ayyuhan nabi. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't point out anybody specifically. It just says to whoever reads this verse, ud'u. If you believe in this book, then you're commanded by Allah to call into His way. You're commanded by Allah to call into His way. And Shaykh Abdullah was saying that if this verse had been the only thing Allah had ever said about da'wah, would be sufficient. It would have been sufficient to know what is about. There are many other ones, but we're going to stick with this one today because we can't go through this entire course. This is part of my da'wah workshop. But this word ud'u. Now, and also the Prophet ﷺ commanded, he said, "Balighu anni walau ayya." Convey from me, even if it's one verse, a command from him. Convey from me. Pass on what I've told you. If da'wah is mandatory, and there are about 10 verses that I go through in my da'wah workshop proving that this is the requirement, mandatory. If da'wah is mandatory, then again, mandatory actions in Islam have places, 2 categories. That's why I love Islam is systematic. It's systematic. Every obligation in Islam has 2 categories. What are those 2 categories? Fard kifaya or fard ayn. Fard kifaya was a collective obligation, meaning that some of the community should do it in a sufficient manner so that it can say that the job is getting done. And if they don't, then everyone is in sin, and it becomes fard ayn until it is met. And fard ayn means that it is a personal obligation that you must do. No one else can be responsible for it, and only you will be held accountable for it, not doing it. A good example of fard ayn is salah. Can I call you on the phone and say, I'm quite busy at work today, I'm going to miss dhuhr. Can you pray dhuhr for me? And then when I get home, you can take asr off and I'll pray asr for you. Does it work like that? Can I go in front of Allah on the day of judgment and be like, my wife kept me so busy I couldn't pray. It's her fault. No, can't do that. It's my personal obligation between me and Allah. The only person who will be held accountable is me if I don't do it. This is fard ayn. Fard kifaya would be like salatul janazah. Salatul janazah. Salatul janazah, when someone dies and we pray for them, there must be enough people. And there's difference, we're not going to go into the fiqh rulings of exactly how many need to be there, but most of the ulama say as long as there's enough for a jama'ah, for jama'ah salah, then there's enough people to have prayed for this person. Then everyone else doesn't have to come. If you're here, you should stay. This is janazah happening, you're here. But if you heard and you were called at work that there's a janazah after dhuhr, you don't have to leave work to come if you know that there's enough people going to be there. But if no one comes, then the entire community is sinned. The entire community has sinned. And it becomes fard ayn on every single person in that community until someone comes and fulfills their obligation. Because think about the logic behind things like this that are fard kifaya. Imagine if it was mandatory for you to pray salatul janazah for every Muslim who died. Guess what your life would be? All the time in janazah. All the time, especially if you lived in a big Muslim community. Like you live in a Muslim country, there's almost a janazah after every salah somewhere. Almost every salah there's a janazah. So if I had to pray every Salatul Janazah and there was people dying all day, all night long, this would be the perpetuity of your life. So Allah understands that, and He's codified Islam in such a beautiful manner that it's an obligation, because this is the right, the haqq upon this person to pray for them and to make janazah for them. But the whole community doesn't have to do it. Other people have things they need to do. Alright, if da'wah is obligatory, it has to fall into one of the two categories. It has to be either fard ayn or it has to be fard kifayah. In its general sense, how many of you would think that it's fard ayn? Raise your hand. Your personal responsibility. Only you can be held accountable for it. Raise your hand high. Be sure of yourself. Okay. Hands down. How many would say that's fard kifayah? It's communal obligation. Okay. That was about maybe half of you. How many of you don't know? All right. The trick question. How many would you say both? It's both. It's both. Dependent upon the circumstance. This is the beautiful thing about da'wah. Da'wah has a very this is what I'm trying to explain to you guys yesterday. The da'wah is a very scientific field that has to be understood. Because in some instances, da'wah could be fard ayn. In other instances, it could be fard kifayah. If you don't know which, you're not going to know if you're fulfilling the obligation or not. So in its general sense, it's fard kifayah. What do I mean by general sense? Meaning there's no such thing as a perfect world, but in the most beautiful form of a world we have, where there is an Islamic ummah, there's Islamic leadership, there's a head of state for the Muslims, then it would be fard kifayah, meaning that there should be a group of people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this, وَلَتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٍ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, that let there be a group of you who do this, يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, they call to good, they give da'wah to good. There should be a group of people that their job is to go and spread the message of Islam. And yes, I did say their job. There has always been an understanding in Islam from the time of the Prophet ﷺ that there would be people in this ummah that their job was to spread the message. The first one the Prophet ﷺ ever appointed was Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anh, when he sent him to Yathrib before he made hijrah. His job was to teach the people the deen. And he is the one who brought the majority of people into Islam so that the Prophet could make hijrah to Medina. He brought the leaders of the tribes of Aws and Khazraj into Islam. Sa'd ibn Mu'az, Sa'd ibn Ubadah, and many others. Usayd ibn Hudayr, very famous companions, were brought into Islam by Mus'ab ibn Umair. Also the Prophet ﷺ appointed Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu an, and sent him to Yemen. He didn't send him to Yemen to do business. He didn't send him to become a tourist. He sent him to give da'wah. That was his job. That was he appointed for. And he was taken care of for that. His family was looked after. Abu Bakr had the same initiative. He sent people out. Umar had the same initiative. Uthman did the same. This is always something that was under the Islamic Khilafah. All four Imams of fiqh, gave the exact same ruling that Islamic workers, such as the du'at, such as the a'imma, such as the mu'adhin, but that was a big job then when there's a lot of masajid, things of that nature. Islamic workers should be paid from the general fund of the Muslims, from the Bayt al-Ma'al, and they should be paid a salary equal to the median income of a professional. But you didn't know that. It is the ruling of all four Imams. They made this specific ruling about Islamic workers. Even to this day, you'll find that there are some Islamic countries, there is no Khilafah, there is no Islamic state, there's nothing resembling it to the 90th degree, I would say, but there are some places who keep up these certain things. There are many Islamic countries who pay Islamic workers. They have an entire section of government called Islamic Affairs and Endowments. Yes or no, am I right or wrong? Saudi has one, Kuwait has one, Dubai has one, it's under the head of tourism, it's under the tourism department. Many Islamic countries have this, and the people who work in that field get paid. They get paid. It's always been like that. Because there is supposed to be a group of people in this ummah that is their job, that is their qualification, that is their speciality, that's what they do. And when that's being done properly and fard kifaya is met, then everyone else is free from the obligation of proactive da'wah. Proactive da'wah, meaning going out and finding non-Muslims to call to Islam. They're just not. Because normally under that circumstance we'd be living in an Islamic society where there would be very few people for you to give da'wah to in the first place. If we were doing our job, there'd be very few people left by now. That's the way it used to be. Muslims had to go quite far to find a non-Muslim. Because even if there were non-Muslims living under the state, they did their own thing. They weren't really very prominent. They weren't very prominent. So in its general sense, da'wah is fard kifaya. Now, if that ruling isn't being met, fard kifaya, then it automatically defaults to fard ayn. Automatically. Do you think in our world today, the ruling of da'wah being fard kifaya is being fulfilled? Anybody think that? If you do, I need to talk to you later. Turn on some Fox News for you. No, we're not doing it. There's not enough of us. There's not enough people doing it first and foremost. How many people do you know full-time, and the most of us who are doing it, we don't get paid. And if we do, it's nothing near to what a professional should be. That's why you have to run businesses and be a tajir. But how many people can you name right now off the top of your head doing full-time da'wah, traveling the globe, trying to spread the message of Islam? Give me some names. Give me some names. Yusuf Estes. Zuhair and Jamal. Who? Yasir Qadi. Numan Ali Khan. Zakir Naik. Suhaib Webb, we have 6. Who? Abdurrahman Green. Huh? 7. Shabir Ali, 8. Jamal Zahim. Jamal Badawi, we got 10. No, not going to count him. 10, and we're struggling. 10. And even if I gave you the next 10 minutes, I guarantee you we wouldn't get above 50. And we're how many people in the world again? 7 billion? And you expect 10, even 50 of us, even 100 of us to do the job? Is that anywhere near, does that anywhere look right to you? No, it's not possible. We wouldn't have enough time in a day to be able to reach that amount of need. Even if you take away, let's say take away the 2 billion Muslims. You still got 5 billion people left. Even to get close to that, we would have to look at the millions to reach that target audience. And I guarantee you, if I gave you till I came back here next year, you wouldn't be able to find me 1 million people doing it. So the job is not being done. How also can we know the job is not being done? We can look at the world. You can look at the world. The world is, going to hell in a handbasket. Something's wrong. So it automatically defaults to fard ayn. Fard ayn. Automatically defaults to fard ayn. Da'wah is also fard ayn when you find yourself in a situation of da'wah. If you personally encounter a non-Muslim and the opportunity to share the message of Islam is presented to you, then now you have a personal responsibility, because you'll be questioned about that encounter. That's why Muslims always need to be ready. Even though there should be some of us doing it on a professional level, we all need to be ready, because at any time we could be called to be on that level. So we always should be ready. Always should be ready. Just like Salatul Janazah. For those of you who don't know how to pray it, you should know how to pray Salatul Janazah. Even though you might never do it, what if you're the only person around to lead it? You don't know how to pray it, so you can't fulfill that obligation. You need to know how. These are minimum requirements that a Muslim must know. Da'wah is part of it. But the scholars also say that da'wah has very similar rulings to battle in Islam, to battle. We don't want to just start throwing the J word around because then I got to go into a long definition of explaining it. Similar rules to battle in Islam. There is offensive battle in Islam and defensive battle in Islam. And da'wah has very similar rulings. Very similar rulings. When Islam is under attack, when the religion is being ridiculed and mocked, when Muslims are being ridiculed and mocked just for their religion, when the Prophet ﷺ and his character is being ridiculed and mocked, then defensive da'wah is mandatory. It is your obligation to defend the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is your obligation to defend the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to not do so is considered sinful if you have the capacity. If you have the capacity. If there's no threat of your life and the danger of your health and well-being, then you have to do something. If not, you become complicit. You become complicit. There is a ruling that when you see, like, let's say a lie being spread or a slander being spread, and you know the truth of the matter and you have the ability to voice that truth and defend that truth, and you're quiet for no good reason, then you're just as guilty as the people doing the lying, as people doing the slandering. You're complicit. You are complicit, derelict in your duty in doing so. You're hiding the message of Islam or hiding the truth by keeping your mouth closed when you have every opportunity presented to you to share it. Do we live in a world where Islam is being mocked? Oh yeah. Whew. Muslims are being mocked. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is being mocked. The Quran is being mocked. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is being mocked. And yet we act like we have nothing. We don't have anything. No. Freedom of speech. Yes, America is a land of freedom of speech. The same way you have the right to mock my religion, I have the right to defend it. Absolutely. So you can say what you want to say, absolutely, and I can say what I want to say. But let me tell you something about what I'm going to say. It's called truth. Truth crushes nonsense every time. Truth crushes ignorance every time. Truth crushes batil, falsehood, every time. So have your say, and I'm going to have my say, and we'll see who's the one with, as they say, pie on their face in the end, egg on their face. I don't know what you guys say on the West Coast. In the end, the one who's embarrassed. So we have an obligation. In our current situation, you could almost say the da'wah is double fard ayn if there was such a ruling. Now, I did not make up a fiqh ruling, I'm just giving you an emphatic that is double fard ayn. It's fard ayn because fard kifaya is not being met. And it's fard ayn because Islam is under attack. And you could say it's triple fard ayn because you live in a world where you every day meet non-Muslims where you have an opportunity to present Islam to them. So you live in an area and a time and a place where excuses are stripped away from you threefold. You couldn't even wiggle your way out of it if you wanted to. Because you're going to fall into the ruling one way or the other. Either under the rulings of fard kifaya, either under the rulings of offensive da'wah, or under the rulings of you're having the opportunity to do so. And within your capacity. You have to do it. I know a doctor in Jacksonville, Florida. He is not only is a pediatrician, he's a nephrologist, so he focuses on, I think, that's kidney diseases for children. He's one of the higher board members on the masjid. He's also one of the regional presidents for ICNA, one of the regional directors for Y Islam. He also is very active in da'wah personally in his job. When he gives patients medicine to their parents, he tells them that this medication I have prescribed because it is fitting to the symptoms of your child. But know that this medication cannot help your child without the permission of the one who created them. So before giving them this medicine, I ask you to say, in the name of the creator of all things, I ask you to allow this medicine to heal my child. And he's given a number of shahadas just like that. He understands, he gets it. Within his capacity, he does everything that is capable and possible for him. Because he does not want there to be an excuse. He wants to go in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment saying that I did what I could. I did what I could. So this is da'wah. This is what da'wah is. It's an obligation. You have to do it. You cannot get around it. And anything that is obligated, we discussed this last night. And this is how we'll kind of bring this to a little close. What time are they praying, Asr? 3:30? What time is it? 2:30? Oh, we have plenty of time. Anything that is obligated. I'm going to go a little bit longer than that. I will take a small break before the next session just because I can't go for 4 hours straight. My head is dinging right now. It's like somebody has a cowbell in my ear going off. Anything that is obligated, the knowledge of how to perform it properly is also obligated. It's also obligated. That which is obligatory, then the rulings for how to accomplish it are also obligatory. Just like zakah is obligatory, knowing how to pay zakah is obligatory. You have to know how. If not, you don't know if you're doing it or not. You don't know if you're doing it or not. Salah is mandatory. So the minimum requirements for salah are mandatory to understand. You must understand about tahara. How could you pray if you don't? You wouldn't know if you are clean or not. You must understand the timing, or you won't know when to pray and when not to pray. You must understand qibla is part of the arkan of the salah. If not, you're praying in the wrong direction. Doesn't matter, won't be valid. You must understand these things. The same way with da'wah, if it is mandatory upon you, then understanding how to do it properly is also mandatory upon you. And you cannot learn that overnight. You can't learn that overnight. You have to learn that through experience. You have to learn that through training. Through a period of time. Just like you cannot become a doctor overnight. Now, yesterday I said that du'at are like doctors. What do doctors do? We're talking about general practitioners right now. Your family internal medicine doctor. What do? They try to cure people. What do? They diagnose. Their job is to diagnose people and then present whatever cure medication they can. But their primary job is diagnosis. That's the primary job of an internal medicine physician, or in Europe and England they call it a general practitioner, is to diagnose illness. If you go to the doctor, you say, I'm sick, does he just start handing you pills? No. If so, anybody could be a doctor. But that's the way we do our da'wah. We just start handing out pills. Here, take this subscription on it. We just start handing out pills. We don't even know what's wrong with people sometimes. If a doctor tried that, he'd be probably put in jail before long, because he can kill somebody. What does the doctor do when you say you're sick? He asks you questions. What's wrong? What's ailing you? What's hurting? Where's the pain? He'll ask, and does he spend 1 hour with you, getting to the finest point of asking you every single detail of your life to find out exactly what's wrong with you? No, he doesn't have time for that. He's got 50 people he's got to see today. He knows about 3 or 4 questions to ask you and a couple of things to check based on those questions, and he can get to the root of your problem. This is what they're trained to do. Very quickly diagnose you and figure out what's going on. And yes, sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes, might not know exactly what it is, but might work. If this doesn't work, let me know, and then switch. But his job is to diagnose in a relatively short amount of time what's wrong with you, and then give you a remedy for that problem. Correct? And so that little bitty thing he does, you might be in his office 15 minutes. How many years did he go to school to be able to do that? A long time. Years and and years and years and years and years just to be able to spend 15 minutes with you to figure out what's wrong with you. You see the difference? With us, we spend 15 minutes learning da'wah, and then we think we can go spend 15 years giving it. with that 15 minutes that we spent on YouTube. We got it, we're ready to go. No, the opposite is true. You have to spend more time learning than you actually end up giving out. Then you can reach a certain level where now you can begin to practice. But even doctors, once they graduate, is that the end of their learning? No, they have to keep on learning. They have to keep on studying because new medicines come about. They need to know what these medicines are. New illnesses arise. They need to know how to deal with it. They have to have continued learning. The du'at are the same way. Your learning will not stop. A doctor, as long as he's a doctor, will continue to be in school and continue to be learning and continue to be studying. A da'i, as long as you're a da'i or a da'iyah, you're going to have to continue studying. Because you're going to come across new things you haven't heard before that you need to answer. You're going to deal with new people, new situations, and you're going to need to continue to study. That is why I said that du'at are like doctors. Also, our job is the job of a diagnoser. We're diagnosing people. But we're not diagnosing physical sicknesses. We're diagnosing spiritual sicknesses. Spiritual sicknesses, which are more deadly than the physical ones. Yeah, you can die from a physical illness, sure. But if your soul is correct and your soul is right, then that death or that sickness won't harm that soul, right? Won't do any harm to it. But if your soul is sick with whatever it is, disbelief, shirk, whatever, even if you lived 1,000,000 years, would that ever do any good for your soul? No. Once you die, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So our job is to diagnose this, the soul, what's going on. And we need to learn how to do that in a very efficient manner. Because you don't have an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours with everyone you talk to. It's just not reality. Most dawah scenarios, you have sometimes 2 to 5 minutes or less. So you need to be able to get to the point really quickly. That takes training. Training. I'm able to narrow people down to about 4 to 5 questions, and I know exactly what I need to say. I don't have the time to go through it, but quickly I'll say, do you believe in a God? Do you believe in God? Yes. Okay. Now I need to go to question 2. If they say no, that's it. I know what is the problem. Right away I know the problem. This person is an atheist. Right away I know exactly what I need to start dealing with. Someone who does not believe. They say yes. Do you practice a form of religion? Yes, I'm a Christian. Boom. The list of my list of remedies is getting smaller now. You see, I'm narrowing down the symptoms. Do you follow a certain denomination in Christianity? Yes, I'm a Baptist. It's got really small. Really, really small. Because now within, how many questions is that? God, form of religion? Yeah, 4 questions. I know exactly the problem. The problem is the belief in Jesus as a God. That's what I need to target. That is the core of this sickness. I need to get at it. Right away I know. 4 questions, I'm there. I know exactly where I need to go with this person, and I can't get off of it until I deal with this. This is what you would say is the cancer or whatever, that if I don't get this out, we don't eradicate this somehow, then there's nothing else, there's nothing I can do, because that is spreading to everything else. It's corrupting all the other systems. Got to shoot that out. No, we're not shooting anyone. Let me. This is on camera. Not shooting anyone. The next thing you know, squad cars will be rolling out in front of the masjid. No guns around here. But that's what we're dealing with. You understand? Do you now see how important understanding da'wah properly is? Because if I start going and trying to just see someone, hey, let me tell you why Jesus is not God. And they tell you, you spend 5 minutes explaining to them the best Ahmadiyya story you have ever heard. Or Zakir Naik line. And then the end of all that, they tell you, I'm a Buddhist. I don't believe in Jesus. You look really silly, don't you? Because you didn't find out. You didn't diagnose. You just went and just started throwing pills around. You didn't diagnose anything. So we have to understand that. We're diagnosing things. And you can't give the same medication to every patient. You can't. You can't deal with the person who believes that Jesus is God like the person who does not believe that he's God and that he's only the begotten Son of God. They're 2 different matters. Or someone who believes that there are many gods. Or someone who believes that there is no God. Or someone who is an agnostic that just doesn't know. Or someone who believes that there is a God, but he does not play a role in human life, like the deists. You cannot deal with them all the same. So therefore, you need to have training. There is overall ways you can deal in everybody, with everybody. With everyone, you can call them to Tawheed. I don't even need to know what you believe. For people who say, what if I don't have all that yet and I'm put in a da'wah situation? Just call them to worship Allah alone. Tell them that Allah created them. He created them to worship Him. He gave them an operating system to worship Him, meaning Islam, submission to the Creator sincerely, to have peace in this life and in the next. You've done your job. You've given da'wah. But if you want your da'wah to be pinpointed and you want it to be serious and you want it to be systematic, then you're going to have to go at it with this doctor approach. But until you get there, just call people to worship Allah alone. This was the Prophet's da'wah. قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُونَ. Say that there's no God but Allah and I guarantee you success. So your da'wah can be very simple. But for those of you who want to be actively involved in it, you're going to have to be a little bit more complex than that. In today's world especially, people need a lot more convincing. You know, they watch the TV too much, you know what I mean? They believe in fairy tales. You need to be able to bring them back to reality and deal with their particular situation. So this is why it's so important to understand the obligation of da'wah, to understand the training of da'wah. Even if there's no da'wah training going on, find a way. There are plenty of da'wah training courses online. I know Bilal Phillips does one. I know Khalid Yassin has done some. They're online, they're filmed, and things of that nature. So please find it. And if you want to take all of them, take all of them. When usually people ask me what's the best da'wah course to take, I tell you to take all of them. Because one thing that will never change is the fiqh of da'wah. It won't change. That's unchangeable because that is a system that's written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the application of that fiqh is different from time to place to person. And you might get something from one person who grew up with a different type of background, the way he applies da'wah, from a different person who grew up with a different type of background in the way they apply da'wah. Like for instance, myself. Christianity is my forte. That's my specialty. That's my medical field, is Christianity. I can get real serious. I can get in with a scalpel on Christianity. You know, I can get to the fine root of it. Now with Hinduism, might not be as strong. If I got into it with a real knowledgeable Hindu, I might need to get another person on board, another specialist. I might not be able to go too deep. You see what I'm saying? So with Zakir Naik's got that Hinduism thing with a scalpel. You know, slice and dice it. So you see, everybody has their own forte, just like doctors. You have people who are general practitioners, which is the majority. Then you have specialists. People who specialize in the heart, in the brain, in the kidneys. People who specialize in the feet, whatever have you. They have their thing and they know that area very well. And sometimes the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with you, right? This is a little bit more serious, so he refer you to a specialist to do further testing and things of that nature. Sometimes that's what you have to do. Somebody comes to you with a religion you never heard of. You're going to have to say, okay, well, hold on a second, you know, let me take your information, let me go do some research and figure out what's going on here, and might need to get another specialist on board. So this is just the way da'wah works. Think of it as a medical field, because you're dealing with people's souls. It's life or death. It's life or death matter, inshaAllah ta'ala. Now, we're going to take a short question and answer session. Then we'll break it through to give me a little breather until Salatul Asr, and hopefully my head will stop ringing and dinging. Any questions based on what we've covered? If it's beyond what we covered, it's going to be a bit difficult, because then we're going to get to teaching in another lecture, inshaAllah. Brother Jamal, you wanted to add something? Or? Okay, you got to wait though, because try to slide it in there with the announcement. Hold on. Okay, sister first and then brother. Yeah, you can just look it up. Bilal Phillips. Kamal Mekki, I think, as well, does a dawah course. He used to do a dawah course called the 10-minute Shahada, which I helped him develop when we were together in Virginia. But I think now he does something, another one with Al-Maghrib Institute.
One of the advanced courses,
Hamza Zorsis does one as well, yes. Ira does Call of Duty. I think they might do it online as well, inshallah. Yes, brother. Allahu A'lam. Only Allah knows. You understand what I'm saying? It could be. I've seen cases where it doesn't take a whole lot, and there could be cases where it never works, and there could be cases where it takes extended time. But one thing I will say is you get in what you can get in, and then if the conversation cannot continue, you take numbers. You leave your card. You do something to try to continue the conversation. Then it's up to the individual. Not in for everyone, but because you would have to break it down. The understanding to say that Jesus was God, and if a person says to me, how would you prove that Jesus is not God? How would you prove that Jesus is not God? I would ask them very simple questions. Like number one, is he omnipotent? Meaning, does he know everything? They'll say yes. Did Jesus know everything? No, he said himself, I did not know of the day of judgment. He said, of that hour knoweth no man, not even the Son, only the Father who is in heaven knows that day. The Bible says that 3 places in the New Testament. So they don't seem to be the same person. Again, can God be seen? The Bible says no man can see God. Many places in the Old Testament, and Jesus himself said no man has ever seen God. Did they see Jesus? Yes, they saw Jesus. They saw him. And they'll say, oh, but if he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. If you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. I said, well, then you have yourself either a contradiction, either there's a contradiction, or something is misinterpreted. Something misinterpreted. Because Jesus and God are not the same. God was all powerful. Jesus was not all powerful. He needed to eat, he needed to sleep, he needed to breathe, he needed to drink. When he was a baby, he needed to be breastfed, he needed to have his diapers changed. Does it sound like God to you? So you see, I try to break that very small down, just even if it's not going to work completely, get their mind headed in that direction. That Jesus and God are not the same person. They're 2 contradictory natures. Because God's nature is unlike anything else's nature. He is all powerful, he is all knowing, he is all seeing, he cannot be seen, etc., so on and so forth. This is what the Bible teaches, what Jesus taught. But he himself was not this. He was not all powerful. He was not all knowing. He can be seen, etc. So I try to head down these lines of drawing a contrast really quick, inshallah. Sister, any question? I'm going back to a sister now. Any questions, sisters? Going once, going twice? You've asked once, so let me get the brothers, then I'll come back if we have time, inshallah. Yes, Brother Jamal. Defending the ideology of Islam by delivering the message of truth, by being the message, by living the message, by exemplifying Islam in our lives publicly, allowing people to see the good works of Muslims, being socially conscious, being involved in the humanitarian projects of this city, being involved in the homeless problem, being involved in the poverty problem, being involved in the domestic violence problem, being involved in the child abuse problem, being involved in whatever societal ill that we know Islam speaks on, and that we know Islam is against, and that we know Islam has the solutions for. Grassroots efforts. Grassroots efforts go a long way. Putting in the work, you see, because Muslims like to talk the talk, but we don't want to do any work. Yeah, we want to say that Islam is here to eradicate homelessness. You're not doing anything about the homeless. They walk by the masjid all the time. We don't get like we care less. Islam is here to eradicate poverty. We're not trying to give back. We want to keep it all for ourselves. We drive nice and fancy cars, and we give sadaqah to the masjid. If there's an earthquake in Pakistan, we send thousands and tens of thousands and fifties and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. but there's poor people not eating tonight right down the street from the masjid, and we don't even act like we care. You see, it's a problem. It's a problem. We need to be focused. This is the defense of Islam in this age, in this time, in this place, is to live the message. Live the message, word and deed. You know, there's an old southern statement that the deeds make the man. Deeds make the man. It's my grandfather taught me. It's an old John Wayne statement, I think. Old saying of John Wayne. My grandmother and grandfather used to make me watch that all the time. They used to say, deeds make a man, and it's quite true. It's not your words don't make you a man. Your deeds make who you are. The same, and when I mean man, I mean a person of integrity. Your actions speak. Let your actions speak. Any sister? You have a chance? Yes, sister. Exactly. There's so many ways you can take that. And that's one of the things we do in the Dawah workshop is we break down Christianity and its different groups and beliefs and show ways that you can go and target that, inshallah. But that's a very good ideology. The question was more of a comment about speaking about if Jesus was God's son, then what about Adam? Adam has more of a right, being that God created him without a mother and a father. And then why would God wait until the middle of humanity, or even farther than the middle of humanity, to finally send his salvation? I mean, so what about the people before Jesus? They were kind of out of luck. They were screwed, basically. They could complain before Allah that, hey, look, you know, why did those people get the chance and we didn't get the chance? So some good logic there, yes. Yes, brother.
My question is more like a psychology kind of question. I have not yet met a single Muslim who is not interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have hard to find someone who does take action.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of other countries, they are more people involved and they do take action rather than talking. And I see in the United States, especially California, people don't do nothing. They just sit and talk and they come back and then they go back home. You know, even general public, the gas prices are higher, nobody says nothing about it. So are we programmed in a culture that we're not able to take action? And what can we do to make ourselves aggressive about taking action? I can talk all day long, but when it's time to find someone, if I see someone, I'm shy away. I don't know, I can't talk. Words don't come in my mouth.
Okay.
It's the right timing. Something is done to us to program us that we don't take action. What can we do to fix it?
Okay, when it comes about taking action in da'wah, it's not always about speaking. Da'wah is not just about talking. Because some people, that's not really their thing. You know what I mean? Some people just don't have the words, the gift of the gab, this. It's doing what you can within your capacity to share the message of Islam. For some people, that might be just handing out a pamphlet. Maybe you keep pamphlets with you wherever you go and you're able to hand them to people about Islam, and that's about as far as you can take it. That might be within your capacity. Some people might be able to share the message of Islam. Some people, it might just be living Islam openly, showing people the practices of Islam, being honest, being just, being trustworthy, being kind, being nice, being charitable, and things of that nature. Also, some people, when it comes to da'wah, there's usually two types of people. There's two types of people. There are the doers who have the time to give da'wah. They have time. You have a group of people who have time to give da'wah. They have knowledge. They have capacity. They have all of the tools necessary to give da'wah. Normally, what do you think the thing is they're missing? No, they have all that. They have all that. They have that. We're getting there. Infrastructures, they don't have that. They don't have funds a lot of times. They don't have the ability. Again, for those of you who think da'wah doesn't take money, you're fooling yourself. Trust me. It's took money from the beginning. Khadija radiallahu anha wa radaha went from being rich to being poor because of the da'wah. Her support of it. Her support of the da'wah. The companions donated for the da'wah so much because it does take infrastructure. It does take professionalism. Nice professional flyers you can't pay for them at Kinko's with wishes, with du'as. They don't get paid for like that. You can't buy recording equipment to produce professional HD quality videos that a non-Muslim will look at and think that whoever made this is serious about what they're doing with $50. You know, you can't even buy the card to put in the camera for $50. It needs money. It needs funding. Absolutely. Jamal, am I wrong? You guys need money for da'wah? It's all free sabilillah? No free sabilillah? Yeah, Muslims are willing to do things fi sabilillah, but then they want you to do it all free sabilillah. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't go very far. I tell you to get in your car and drive it home free sabilillah. Don't put no gas in it. Just dua. It's not going to make it. So there are doers, but they usually don't have funding. Why? Because they have spent a lot of their time and life and effort getting the capabilities to do the doing. I don't know if you know, but Islamic studies is not really a very lucrative field of study. They're not hiring, in $1 million jobs for people who's graduate in Islamic studies. It just doesn't happen. This is why a lot of fathers and parents don't want their children going into Islamic studies. We need to change that. And I've been working on that. I've been working on professionalism and da'wah. Anyone who's dealt with me knows that I try to keep things 100% professional from beginning to end. This way I try to perform. Try to give this professionalism air to da'wah because it's serious. And I don't even do it as a job. This is just a passion I do. But I want the people to come after me to understand what professional da'wah is. Then there are people who have the funds. They have the money. They have all of this stuff. Why? But most of these people don't have a lot of time. You know, these big money guys, they barely have time. They're busy people. And a lot of them usually don't have the extensive knowledge in da'wah like most people do. Or the capabilities or the free time, none of that. Why? Because they spend a lot of their life gaining those means. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being rich. And there's nowhere in the Quran that says you have to be poor. It says that the poor have a special place and they will have an easy path to Jannah because they don't have a lot to be questioned about. They didn't have anything. But it doesn't mean you can't be rich. Abu Bakr was rich. Uthman was rich. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was rich. Companions were wealthy. They had money. This ummah was so wealthy at one time that Muslims were being paid a salary just to be Muslim because they didn't know where to put the money anymore. They were like, just here, just take it. Even the last part of the Khilaf of Umar ibn al-Khattab, they didn't know what to do with the money anymore. With the Uthman's time, they just started building stuff. And that's kind of, we carried on that tradition now. The Muslim countries are so wealthy, what do? We just build something. Build it big, high, tall, whatever. In Muslim countries, they have so many masajid. You know why? Because that's what the rich people do. They want to give away some money and just go build a masjid. Anywhere. Gas station, anything. Just build something. That's why you see masjids at almost every gas station in Saudi Arabia and in the Khalij. There's masjids everywhere. Because they don't know what else to do with their money. So now how can we fix the problem? The people who are the doers can connect with the people who are the havers, and the havers can support the doers, and then they both can benefit and get the same reward. The same reward. The haver, the person who has, will get the exact same reward as the person who's doing because he's facilitating the doing. Even though he might be sitting on his couch at home after a long day of work, he'll be getting the same exact rewards with Allah as the person who's doing the doing because he's facilitated it. The Prophet ﷺ said, he who encourages or facilitates a good action will get the reward of it without the reward of the person doing it being lost. This is da'wah. So this is something that needs to be fixed. First you need to understand that da'wah is a professional thing. It needs some money. And the people who are doing it should be connected with the people who are having it. Trust me, the people who are doing it are always looking for you guys who have it. It's not like we're not looking. You just need to try to find those doers. I think it's more along that lines that the havers need to find the doers. Because the doers are always going to be looking. And support one another, insha'Allah ta'ala. Ta'awan, meaning to help one another and, to support one another. This is what is needed in the da'wah. That we help and support one another in it, insha'Allah. Okay, we're going to take a short break, inshallah, about a 25-minute break till Salatul Asr. And then after Asr, we will get to the main meat of the program, Islam in the Bible, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, wa barakallahu feekum, wassalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khairan, for coming out on a Saturday afternoon. We're very happy with the turnout, alhamdulillah.